Dr. Ryan, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here today. This is going to be fun.
Thank you, Nate. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So, you are a board certified neurologist, you're a Navy vet, and you are the founder of Transcend Health. Your new book is due out September 9th. Give us just like 2 to 3 reasons, like an important aspects of who you are and what you do that make it vital for our audience to like listen in and hear your message today.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the intro, Nate. So, spent a lot of time in my career seeing people go through this and thinking about this, but I'm just tired of the state of the world and the state of our health, number one. And what I mean by that is that most of us, and especially most Americans, live a very unhealthy lifestyle, and many people just don't realize it. So, bringing awareness to that topic, number one, I think is important and something that I do. And not to do that to shame people or to say that you're doing the wrong thing, but rather the opposite, to inform people that we ended up here through no fault of our own and without really realizing it in many cases, number one. And number two, to educate and empower people that they have the control to transform their lives and just feel better, perform better, show up more for what matters, and just go do the things they want to do in life. And I think that's where we have a ton of synergy here. I mean, in terms of what you do with Million Dollar Body and low carb hustle and everything. But anyway, that's sort of the high level in a nutshell.
Okay, cool. So I got a lot of questions for you today, kind of around like the path you've chosen. But first of all, you said that like you are really concerned with like the overall health of like the US right now, and we've kind of gotten out of control. What made you choose neurology as the path versus like physical therapy or like even like fat loss coaching? Like why did you go that route versus something that's more like kind of traditionally associated with like health?
Great question. So I really didn't get into the more holistic, zoomed out view until the last couple years of my life when I really started practicing and seeing all this firsthand. And I'll come back to that in a second. But what got me into neurology and what got me fascinated in the brain and just how our brains work and what happens, that all started at an early age. Like many people that go into healthcare, suffered a fair amount of loss when I was younger. I lost some close relatives. And among those people, my maternal grandfather was diagnosed with Parkinson's before I was born. And while I do have some memories of him walking around, he was mostly wheelchair bound for the majority of my life. And that turned some gears early, certainly to make me think about, okay, what is this disease? Why does it happen to people? Why did it happen to my grandfather? I distinctly remember when he passed away. Visiting him. I just have all these very vivid memories from childhood that certainly got me thinking about the brain. And fast forward to going through medical school and just learning the neuroscience and just the just wonders and mysteries that our brain creates. Very, very stimulating, very interesting stuff. I think neuroscience is heading in some fascinating directions. So that's why neurology. And then to kind of zoom back out, my first part of my career was in the military, and I worked with the Marines, with our sailors. I had a chance to work with Special Forces, so in particular MARSOC, which is the Marine Corps Special Operations Command. And these people are literally tip of the spear and the highest level of human performance imaginable. And that's a very empowering group of people to work with and be around, and motivating group of people to be around. And it wasn't until I left the military really in 2022 where I started again seeing civilians and non-military members in my clinical practice that were suffering from all these chronic diseases. And I just kept asking the question, like, how did we get here? And why are we in this state? And this is clearly something that is modifiable, and the literature and the data supports that. So that's when I sort of made that pivot a few years back to kind of zoom out, like I said, and have the more holistic health approach rather than just focus on just the brain stuff.
You said also that a lot of people don't realize how unhealthy they are. And you also said that it's not their fault. Do you really think that most people don't understand like their own health level? Or do you think that like at their core, they know that they're not healthy. They know that they're not living right. And they have a perception where I can fix it as soon as I get through this season, as soon as I get to this promotion, as soon as my kids are a little bit older or whatever, and they like are putting it off? Or do you truly think that people don't realize?
I think probably somewhere in between. And that's a great point, Nate. So for one, just a few quick stats. 93% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy. What does that mean? Well, first off, that means that most of us have something wrong in one of these following parameters. That's how much we weigh, what's our blood sugar, what's our blood pressure, what are our cholesterol levels, and what are the fats in our bloodstream. And the reason those 5 categories of measurements matter is that any number of those things together can predispose us to chronic disease like high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, premature neurodegenerative disease like Alzheimer's, which is something I deal with. But all of this adds up over time and it smolders. And so, sure, we can look in the mirror and say, okay, do I have a 6-pack or not? Or, do I have more of the pear-shaped build or not? Yeah, I think people are aware of that. But when it comes to the subtleties, I mean, there are plenty of thin people that don't necessarily, quote unquote, look unhealthy, that are not metabolically healthy at all. And without people really understanding how these things work and educating themselves on how their bodies and their brains work, I think a lot of people are in the dark on this and don't fully understand or have the operating manual to know how to manipulate these things.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I want to get into some of the brain health stuff, and I want to talk specifically about Alzheimer's because selfishly, like that's something I'm very interested in. I did like a DNA test, and I said I'm like 7 times as likely to be impacted by it. It runs in my family, so I have some questions on that. But I do want to get into the higher performance stuff as well because I think that's something that you are an expert at, and like diving deep into your book. But talk to me about Alzheimer's. Like we are behind on Alzheimer's. Like we've got loads of studies showing that plaque buildup in the brain is the thing that causes Alzheimer's, and these pills are supposedly able to help with that. In the last like 2 years, we've seen that is not only categorically false, those studies were manipulated by pharmaceutical companies to sell more of these drugs, which don't help in the slightest. And that's just my like kind of high level understanding of it. Correct me if I'm wrong, and educate me on like what's real.
No, you're spot on. That's why I was sort of chuckling at that because, when I went through my residency training, and I trained at Georgetown, which is a fairly respectable institution, and I had a fantastic time there and value my education. But even in that paradigm and within Western medicine in general, we have this very dogmatic, siloed, reactive training pathway where people kind of get tunnel vision, even in academics. And there's been this
even in academics,
especially in academics. Yes. Conspiracy theories aside and all of that, and, FDA influence aside and pharmaceutical influence aside, people kind of hang on or latch onto these ideas about, okay, it's just the amyloid plaques or it's the tau neurofibrillary tangles or whatever. It would appear that those are more an epiphenomenon of Alzheimer's. And what I mean by that is a reaction to something else happening underneath rather than the thing that causes the disease itself. And when we go back to the early 20th century, when Dr. Alois Alzheimer, who's the German psychiatrist who actually the disease is named after, when he autopsied the first patient that these changes were described in, that's where this comes from, because he looked at the stains of this lady's brain. Her name was August Dieter, for what that's worth. I'm just a encyclopedia full of useless trivia if anybody wants to know. But anyway, when he looked at her brain under a microscope, he saw these changes for the first time that had never been described. And since then, I think as a neuroscience community, in many ways, people have latched onto that theory that, okay, these plaques and tangles are what cause the disease. And every drug we have developed to today, that's even the FDA approved drugs, have largely failed at fixing or reversing Alzheimer's. So to your point, Nate, I don't think that's the answer, which begs the question, what is? Well, there's a lot of debate on this and there's a lot of emerging science in the field, but what seems clear to me based on kind of retroactively fitting in some of these pieces and comparing people who get dementia versus those that don't, 90-ish% of this is lifestyle, and 99%, actually probably more 99% is lifestyle than anything. I'll come back to the genes thing in a minute, but there's really only 2 genetic mutations that affect about 1% of the population that have any kind of direct causal relationship to Alzheimer's, meaning 99% of people, regardless of what I'm guessing your ApoE genotype is what we'll talk about here in a second, that quote unquote runs in your family. We all have
you could have really said anything there and I'd be like, yeah, definitely. That's what it is.
Well, put it this way: there's a 99% chance that you and everybody do not have the two genetic mutations that cause Alzheimer's. So that's out the window for almost all of us. We do all have what's called an ApoE allele. We get two copies of these things. We get one from mom, one from dad, and there's kind of a low risk, a medium risk, and a high risk version. And if you have one or two copies of the higher risk version, that can increase the chance or the probability that you end up with Alzheimer's later in life by 2 to 10-fold. So again, I'm guessing, and thank you for sharing this, by the way, with your audience, but I'm guessing that that's one of those two genotypes that you've inherited if this is quote unquote in your family.
I should have probably not said that on the air, because then insurance is going to take away my insurance when I hit like 64. So forget I said all that. I was talking about a hypothetical person, not myself.
Correct. Yes. The hypothetical, right. Your avatar, let's say.
That's right.
Right.
Someone I know.
Asking for a friend. But no, seriously, the reason that this is important is that this is a blood test that's available to everybody, number one. And number two, there's a correlation, not a causation. And there's a big difference here, meaning that lifestyle matters. And again, as somebody who has, again, created a whole brand around an intentional, healthy lifestyle, Nate, your risk, in my opinion, based on what I know about you, is good as the next person. I mean, regardless of what that genetic ApoE allele is, period. And I want your audience to know that too. And so when we create an intentional, healthy lifestyle around this, and we look at what actually moves the needle on preventing dementia, well, it's doing things like maintaining a healthy blood pressure, maintaining a healthy body mass, maintaining healthy blood glucose levels over time, maintaining healthy cholesterol, making sure that you're sleeping well, that you're exercising, that you're fueling your body with the right nutrition, which lowers neuroinflammation, avoid smoking. I mean, these are all things that we hear about, but when you actually look at the literature and the data, and you compare people that suffer from one or multiple of these conditions versus those who don't, there's a striking difference in who ends up with dementia and other neurodegenerative diseases later in life versus those who don't.
Cool. Okay. That's super helpful. I know it's like easy to look at like one specific variable, but it seems to me, as a uneducated non-neuroscientist, that having elevated glucose levels, high levels of blood sugar, like at all times, is more so the problem that we see with both dementia and Alzheimer's, as well as like the cholesterol issue, because of the viscosity of the blood and how it makes our blood like stickier, and it causes things to kind of get jammed up within those blood vessels. Is that more of a factor than other components, or they all play together and we got to keep everything kind of top of mind? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Kind of the way that I look at this, your body's a giant symphony. And so either the symphony is playing in concert and things are working well, or, the violinist is out of tune and, the cymbals are clanging at the wrong time, and whatever metaphor you want to use. And when it comes to the different players in the symphony, so to speak, your blood sugar, your cholesterol, your triglycerides, all these things that we're talking about, those all have to work together. And the interplay between them matters, meaning that if you have elevated blood sugar over time, yes, quite literally, that makes your red blood cells and your arteries stickier. So there's something called a hemoglobin A1C number that people in your audience may be familiar with. This is actually one of the metrics we use to diagnose diabetes. Once that's crossed a 6.5% as a percentage of your red blood cells that are glycated with this sugar essentially stuck to the red blood cells. The way that I think about this is really gross, and this will ruin creme brulee for you forever.
But please give me a gross analogy. I need it.
But the kind of the crusty bit on top of creme brulee, when you sort of flambe it and it's like sticky and crystallized, like that's the stuff that's stuck on your red blood cells, basically. That is what we're measuring as a percentage of how much of those are stuck with sugar on your red cells, which is really.
I'm gonna think about that next time I have an apple fritter.
There you go. So we want that number to be, kind of around the 5.0 range, not closer to the 6.5 range for those that are interested. Most people should be closer to 5 than 6 and change. But anyway, I'm going down a rabbit hole here. But the point is, that's a reflection of your metabolic health. And the largest sink or reservoir for glucose in your entire body are your muscles. And so if your muscles are well conditioned and you have a healthy lean mass and you're lifting weights and you're doing cardiovascular or endurance exercise, even if you're throwing in some HIIT activity to help turn over your mitochondria, all this stuff, independent of your pancreas. Pancreas is what secretes insulin in response to sugar when you take in anything that has a high glucose load. Independent of that whole process, if you have enough what are called GLUT4 receptors on your muscles, if you're well conditioned and exercised, your muscles are hungry and they're like, man, we're going to need some of that sugar for training later because we know you keep exercising and we're going to want that for the next workout tomorrow or this afternoon or whatever. It pulls the glucose out of your bloodstream and stores it in your muscles as glycogen. And that's something you can condition and train. So they're actually diabetics that can actually get off of insulin by increasing their muscle mass, or at least help regulate their blood sugar by just going for a walk instead of injecting insulin, which is kind of cool. Again, I know we're focused on sugar here, but my point is there are things you can do in your lifestyle that meaningfully modify these parameters that not only improve your performance in the meantime, but lower your risk of chronic disease moving forward. And again, lower your risk of dementia, heart attacks, strokes, et cetera, down the road.
I may have blacked out for a second, but if I were to reiterate what you just said, it would be that the more muscle you have, the better of a person you are. And if you have enough muscle, you'll never die. So thanks for coming on the show, man. This is really good. That's really helpful.
Nailed
it. I'm just going to take that away. And I also like what you said about like going for a walk. I mean, like the jokes aside, like I like that, like my whole thing with like fitness nutrition is eat more, exercise more. I hate the eat less, move less mentality because you can't keep cutting calories all the way down. But if you have more muscle tissue, you can eat more food. That means more muscle tissue is more room for tattoos on your body and more tacos you can consume. This is the way, And so I feel like when you have that muscle and you start moving that muscle, even if it simply is going for a walk and you're carrying 60 pounds of muscle versus someone who's carrying 40 pounds of muscle, you're going to get a lot more calorie burn. You're going to be using those muscles and you're going to be able to filter out some of that glucose and actually use it for energy rather than getting stored within your like cells or just have it swim around your bloodstream. So massive like testimonial for building muscle right here.
There's no question. And independent of maybe muscle size per se, strength is one of the highest correlates with lowest all-cause mortality. They typically measure this with hand grip strength. And it's not to say that you need to go out and get like a stress ball or whatever, but in general, the way that I interpret this or look at this is that stronger grip strength typically is associated with what kind of lifting have you been doing to end up with a stronger grip. Right, you're doing pull-ups, you're doing deadlifts, maybe you're bench pressing, curling, whatever the main compound lifts are that we all encourage people to do in a healthy way. But the point is, increasing strength is going to increase muscle mass to a degree. Number one, number two, after about age 30, we lose somewhere between 1% to 2% of our muscle mass every single year, and that is preferentially type 2 muscle fiber, which your audience may know is the quick twitch or the strength fibers, rather than the type 1 fibers, which are kind of the slower burn, oxidative or aerobic fibers that you condition when you do cardiovascular exercise. But Nate, once those type 2 fibers are gone, they don't come back. And so we've got to preserve them to maintain that strength as we age for again, all these reasons we're talking about, for metabolic health, for longevity, for just getting around. Again, at our age, we don't really think about this, but actually she's not my mother-in-law, but my brother-in-law's mom, whatever that makes her to me, was hiking out in Colorado last week and fell and broke her femur. Oof. And when we see people with a hip fracture or a leg fracture like this, the mortality after something like this is terrifyingly high for people who aren't in good shape. And if your bone mineral density drops because you're not putting enough load or stress on the bones, because you haven't done the work to remain strong, this has massive ramifications for people later in life. And we can see the health span kind of do this and fall off a cliff in our last years. And again, this is just totally preventable with maintenance, with just basic healthy lifestyle.
Okay. Stronger body, stronger mind, stronger life. That's the title of the episode.
That's it.
All right, let's talk performance though. Let's talk about your book, Rewire Your Brain, Take Control of Your Life, coming out September 9th. It's called The Incredible Brain, right?
Yes.
what's like the most common mental default that you observe with your clients or people in general that seems to make them feel stuck or out of control in their own bodies?
That's a great question, Nate.
If I can get the deep sigh after a question, I feel like I'm doing a good job.
No, you're asking very good questions. The sigh perhaps comes from the fact that, again, I think most people aren't aware of how stuck or how stressed they are. Again, to put some numbers behind this, about 50% of Americans report feeling stressed every day in their life. About 75% report feeling stress sometime in the last month. In my experience, number one, those are just the people that are aware of it or at least brave enough to share that. Number one. Number two, your brain has this incredible innate ability to tell you that everything is fine when the world is on fire. And that's designed to protect you. So it's a protective mechanism to try to keep things moving forward and help you maintain homeostasis or kind of a balance of everything, and is directed again at your survival. But in reality, I don't think this serves us very well. So people have every defense mechanism and escapism and escape route in the world to just try to get away from the pain of facing whatever it is that's limiting them or holding them back. And shining a light on that can be hard because it can be painful. So kind of getting people to wake up to the fact that they're not happy in their circumstance, or whether it's how they look or wherever they are in life, or maybe having to encounter some past trauma that's gotten them to where they are and that's limiting who they can become. So the reason I say this is I go through all of this with my clients at various levels and stages depending on where they are, but knowing that kind of opening that can be difficult for people. So just to recognize that, number one.
Why do you feel like it's difficult for people just facing the hard stuff and like owning the truth? Because like in my heart, I feel like people know. I feel like they know that something's going on, and these masking mechanisms of like everything's fine, like those are superficial. And if you really actually were able to like say the truth, and you didn't feel like you had to protect yourself against something, you would be able to explain like that not everything is okay. So like, so
Right.
what keeps people from looking that in the eyes? Why
So
do
I think
people stop doing the workouts that I assign them, Ryan?
right. So I think some people know, and you're right, and that they choose not to face it, or they make an excuse to do something else, and then there are a subset of people who truly don't. I mean, they've just dissociated from it, and it's just not, they're not aware of it, and that there's a psychological phenomenon called dissociation that again is a defense mechanism, and then people either uncover it and they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea, or it's even more painful to go through because they had repressed it for so long. But again, the core essence is that it can be painful, or it is painful for people to face this. And so I encounter a ton of resistance when it comes to behavior change, facing a stressor, or facing something that is generally viewed as unpleasant, or something that people don't want to do. And rather than trying to like grind through that with grit and will and all this stuff, I don't think that that's the most successful approach. That might work for some people, but my approach is to take an objective look at where are we, what do we need to improve, and where is the lowest hanging fruit in the point or the path of least resistance. Because that's ultimately where we default no matter what, is just the easy route, even if the easy route is the healthier or better route. And to give an example of this, I like the kind of, well, actually, we'll take kind of me in my office right now. So when I walk into my office, I have a standing desk and I don't have a chair. And the reason I don't have a chair is because I don't want to sit on a podcast, even if my legs are tired, or I just trained back yesterday and I'm sore. I want to try to maintain better core posture. I know that standing and contracting anti-gravity muscles is going to burn more calories, even greater than rest. And so there are all kinds of health related reasons that I am standing, just like you're standing, sitting in front of me on your microphone, right? So the default easier method for me is to just stand in here and talk to you and do a podcast, because it would take me more effort to go in the living room, open my door, drag a chair in here, hear my wife go, why in the world are you dragging a chair into your office, and have that whole conversation, right? So my point is, make it easy for yourself to just limit the resistance to doing something that's going to provide a better, healthier life for you. Do the same thing with shopping, or with the right nutrition plan. If you go buy the donuts and the ho-hos and the Oreos and the whatever, and that's your snack, well, when you're hungry, guess what you're going to eat? Whatever's in the
If it's in
pantry.
my house, it's getting eaten.
Exactly, right?
You got to stop that at the grocery store. You have to. I think ordering groceries is a big life hack too, because then you don't get affected by the Oreos ads. You're like, what are those crazy motherfuckers up to this time? You got carrot cake on the inside. Let me try this out. Like
Exactly. And there's, we can go down that rabbit hole too. There's the whole kind of marketing team that are assigned to, making things, and even food scientists that make things bright, flavorful, crunchy, savory, sweet, whatever, to take advantage of these primitive circuits that are in our brain to addict us to these things, which gets back to one of my opening statements that it's no one's fault. I mean, we're just, our default program is
feels like it's someone's fault there. You mentioned no conspiracy theories though, so we won't have to.
Yeah, it's not the consumer's fault. Let's say that, but it is someone's fault. That's exactly right. But instead of doing that, just buy whole foods. Buy high fiber, fresh vegetables. That are packed with micronutrients. You're gonna be able to eat more of that. Number one, you mentioned liking to eat. I mean, who doesn't like to eat? So if you have high fiber, high nutrient dense food, or at least calorically healthy food, not empty. I hate the word empty calories. It's not true, but I mean, you can bench through a bag of chips and not get the micronutrients and the nutrient sensing mechanisms that you need, and
plow through 2,000 calories. Yeah,
exactly. Whereas you could eat a plate full of vegetables and maybe get a couple hundred calories, feel very satiated and full, have an array of micronutrients, fiber for your gut bacteria, all of which, by the way, helps build muscle anyway. So total difference in terms of the intentionality behind what you buy, what you put in your body. And again, making it easy and minimizing that resistance to your point.
One of my favorite things to do with vegetables is have those in the fridge. So when I'm like, I need a snack, and I look in there's all these vegetables I don't eat. And then I throw them away when they get old. So it's like it's perfect. Works every time. Got that bag of salad just rotating, just one in, one into the trash. Perfect. Follow me for more health tips.
Yeah, don't eat the black salad.
Do not eat the black salad.
Oh goodness. Yeah, E. coli may or may not be present.
Okay, so you're talking about how people don't even necessarily have like cognition around some of their defaults that cause them to feel stuck. Let's say we've gotten past that. They realize, man, I am like just kind of existing in this like infinite loop of stress, stuck, never doing what I want to do, not following through on the commitments that I'm making. They come to you and they're like, Dr. Ryan, like help me get better brain performance. Help me make my brain kind of similar to these guys you worked with in the Navy, these tip of the spears, these elite performers. What's your next move? What are you talking to them about?
Root cause analysis. So why are we there? So taking them through a very detailed intake questionnaire of really what's the pain point, or what are we missing, or what's driving most of this. And sometimes it's multiple variables. It's not just one. But this is where things like wearable technology can be helpful. I see. Is that an Oura ring that you have on?
Yes, sir.
Yep. So same thing, right? I mean, it's a great tool that I like. I mean, but again, I'm not partial to Oura. You could have a Whoop band or an Apple Watch. I mean, any number of devices that can do this. But getting clear on what are someone's sleep habits. Is their sleep architecture healthy or not? What are they doing before bedtime? Are they waking up? Again, what is their nutritional pattern? What's their training pattern? What is the subjective stress like in a day, and how are they compensating for that? So
we're not even talking really like getting deep into like the mentality. We're talking about like the same literal physical habits that I talk to all my clients about who want to lose fat or build more muscle. It all comes back down to like these same 5 things. Yeah.
Nate, I call them my core 4, but you're exactly right. We can, in this, they're offshoots for each one. So everyone's kind of got their own version of this, but when we look at the literature in terms of what actually moves the needle on health, it's movement, sleep, nutrition, stress management, and whatever other offshoot of that you have. What's your 5th one?
Tacos.
Tacos. There you go. Yeah. Rewarding yourself. There it is.
I think I was going to put hydration in there. So
sure. Yeah. Hydration. Yeah, of course, we're 2/3 water and our brains are 3/4 water. Without being adequately hydrated, we are not going to perform well. That's absolutely correct. But the reason I spend so much time on this is that if somebody's not performing at 100% cognitive capacity, which again, just most of us are not, let's just use that as a baseline default, because we're not. Most people aren't optimized on one or several of those fronts. So until we get that tuned up, until we get all that optimized, because again, this fixes the vast majority in most cases, number one. Number two, we see what's left over. And, like just take nutrition, for example. Have you heard of the gut brain connection, or is that something that's ever come across your desk? So,
Yeah.
so for listeners, maybe you've heard of this, maybe not. This was crazy talk when I was in residency, which was like not even a decade ago. So I mean, I was told, yeah, those people talk about the gut and the brain, but they're kind of nuts. Don't listen to them. And these are neurologists at Georgetown are talking about some pretty respectable people. We've come to find out that that's not the case. Why? Well, again, we've got as many gut bacteria as we have human cells in our body, thereabout. And it turns out that relationship is very important. And if we don't fuel the gut bacteria with the right nutrients, i.e. fiber, or the right prebiotics, we don't have the right ratio. And we now know that the condition called gut dysbiosis, which is not having that population in check, that actually accelerates aging in the body. It promotes chronic inflammation. It decreases the manufacture of necessary vitamins and signaling molecules like short chain fatty acids. It's where we produce the majority of the neurotransmitters in our body, all of which have, again, a bidirectional or a two-way communication with the rest of our body and our brain. So if your gut health is not optimized, there's a fair chance that your cognitive performance is not optimized. And that sounded, again, crazy 10 years ago, but we now know this to be true, or at least believe this to be true. And we can modify this with the right nutritional plan. So getting back to, focusing on mindset, believe it or not, your gut can influence your hunger and how you feel. I mean, it's very interesting. So that's one reason that we start there.
For doing a mindset podcast with a doctor of neurology, we have yet to talk about mindset at all, which is fascinating to me.
Okay, am I dodging the question, or am I just trying to get there a different way?
No, I love it actually, because I think that so many people and I see this in my profession, people want to run before they can walk. They're like, what's the best pre-workout to take? And I'm like, you haven't slept more than 5 hours in the last 3 years.
Yes.
They're like, should I be doing keto? I'm like, you don't even eat vegetables. There's so many things where people want this hack or this shortcut, but you're reinforcing the fact that everything is important, and these basic habits are foundational for a reason. They're not just throwaway things that you go, yeah. Like, what else you got? Tell me about nootropics. What about breath work? So it is fascinating to me that we've spent so much time talking about how important it is to have these core four dialed in before we even get into the ultra performance. So I guess the follow-up question is, we're there. We've got some good sleep. Our nutrition's on point. We're exercising regularly. We're getting enough hydration. We're sleeping well at night. I still want to go to the next level. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a CEO. I'm a parent. I want to make sure that I am functioning at a really, really high level. What are my next steps after having checked those boxes to make sure that I'm operating at least a baseline healthy level, waking up feeling pretty good most days?
Absolutely. So the paradigm that I like to use for people to think about here is the relationship between stress and the brain. And the more stressed our bodies are, we go through this whole physiology if you want, but essentially your brain sends a signal to your adrenal glands to release more cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And don't get me wrong, we need cortisol to function well. So there's this rhythm where we have kind of a higher peak in the morning that wakes us up, that gets our heart rate and our blood pressure going, and make sure that we're actually functional throughout the day. But then it gradually kind of tapers off as part of our circadian rhythm as we go through the day. So respecting that circadian rhythm as best we can is one of the easiest ways for people to start. And again, a free intervention that I love is within an hour of awakening, make sure that you're getting about 15 minutes of early morning light in your eyes. And ideally, if you're waking up with the sun, that's sunlight. That's the best natural source. That's how we all evolved, how our brains evolved. And what that does is it sets your circadian rhythm for the day. Number one, it helps keep you dialed, focused, awake, and alert in the daytime. And equally importantly, it tells your brain at nighttime that, hey, it's time to sleep, rest, repair, regenerate, maintain, improve my memory. Memory is the only time, or sleep is the only time your memories are formed. It's when your muscles repair after a strong workout. So you have to have quality sleep. Not to mention, quality sleep is one of the biggest performance enhancers out there. And if you don't believe me, think of the opposite. When you've woken up and you have had a poor night's sleep and you're trying to train on just, feeling wired on caffeine or whatever, it just doesn't go
Fatigue
well.
makes cowards of all men.
Yes, it does. So anyway, I spend a minute on that to just have this idea of what we call circadian entrainment, meaning that we are respecting that natural rhythm of cortisol and this great symphony again through all the neurotransmitters and chemicals and hormones in our body. This is very, very important to get that right, number one. And then number two, putting in, again, intentional blocks where they belong. And what I mean by that is that if it's a training day, ideally you want to train in the morning too, because again, this is going to respect your body's natural rhythm. There was a fairly large study that was done just a few months ago in a paper called Nature, which is a big journal that a lot of physicians and scientists read. And it actually looked at Whoop users, so not Aura, but the Whoop band. This was over 14,000 people and 2 million plus sleep nights. And it actually looked at people that trained within 4 hours of bedtime and the change in the parameters of their sleep. And Nate, they had elevated heart rates. They had a shrunken heart rate variability, which is a measure of your body's stress load, and just poor quality sleep overall because late exercise was that activating to the body. And it doesn't respect that circadian rhythm. So now to my knowledge, there's not been a head-to-head study comparing no exercise versus late exercise. And I think you and I would both agree that training in general, again, all factors being equal, is probably better than not training. Mm-hmm. But if you can move that to the earlier part of the day, certainly not within 4 hours before bedtime, that seems to be a better thing. So
training early is a life hack too, because you get it out of the way, you boost your endorphins, you feel really good. And then every single time you do it, you reinforce it, who you are. You're like, I'm a fitness minded person. I do hard stuff early. And then most people don't train early in the morning and then go eat donuts for lunch. You already did all that work. So I love the morning training. I don't feel like I see a lot of people who are both fit and extremely financially successful who do not work out in the morning. So love that tip. What about, you have any end of day hacks you swear by?
Yes. So again, back to that respecting that circadian rhythm. This is kind of my through line here, but you want to try to create a wind down routine. And what I mean by that is not doing anything stressful for at least the last hour or two of the day, if you can at all help it. Certainly within the last hour of the day, there are certain things you can do to kind of help entrain your brain and your body to get there. Number one, to mimic again the darkening of the sun, because again, here we are in studios or offices under artificial light and cameras and screens, right? It's already, a wonder of the world, and technology connects us in many ways, but it doesn't respect our natural biology. So we need to be mindful of that. So when it's time to go to bed, you want to make sure the lights are low in the house, that we kind of dim the lights. And rather than sitting there trying to fall asleep, binging Netflix or having an iPad stuck 2 inches from your face that's beaming, blue and green frequency light into your eyes, which is going to delay the release of melatonin, which is the neurotransmitter that actually helps you fall asleep, can delay that by several hours. So now you're pushing your ability to fall asleep even later, which is not healthy over time. So avoiding screens, certainly, or if you have to get around it or you're doing some kind of work, having kind of a blue frequency blocking glasses, making sure that's a high quality product to actually filter that light out, that can be helpful. Getting the house a little bit darker, cooling down the home environment. So again, to prepare our bodies for sleep, our core temperature actually lowers. And so if anybody has access to a sauna, even a nice hot shower can do this. Believe it or not, when you step into a warm environment, so think of a sauna at 180 degrees Fahrenheit or something like this, you shunt blood flow to your extremities and to your skin in particular. And when your pores open up and you start to sweat and heat dissipates from your body because you're heating up, when you pull that blood to the periphery, your core temperature actually cools somewhat. And that actually helps prepare your body for sleep because your core temperature dips a couple degrees overnight and then it sort of comes back up as you're waking up in the morning, along with that rise in cortisol.
So you could do a sauna or you could do a cold shower, and both of those would cause you to decrease your core temperature?
So you want to avoid the cold later in the day.
Oh, okay.
So if you're going to cold plunge or if you're going to do cold shower, cold exposure, ideally you want that to be in the early part of the day.
To avoid your body compensating and actually heating the core temperature.
You got it.
Okay, tracking.
So as counterintuitive as this sounds, when you get into a cold environment, your core temperature actually goes up. Now, your arms and legs are going to be cold. You might have goosebumps and you might shiver. But again, all that blood is being shunted inwards to, again, preserve your brain and your vital organs. That's the survival mechanism there. Now, again, that does turn on some other stress pathways that help keep you more resilient. And back to your question about how do we go to the next level? How do we elevate our performance and focus? In my opinion, I think a cold plunge or a cold shower is a fantastic way to do that because number one, you are maybe you get a slight spike in cortisol, but immediately you get a release of two key neurotransmitters. One's called norepinephrine, the other's called dopamine. And you actually need both of those to help increase your focus, your alertness. And rather than kind of a quick hit, like you might get a quick hit of dopamine if you're scrolling TikTok or Instagram or whatever, this is a slow, controlled, sustained release over a period of hours that helps keep your focus elevated. And again, when done in that early part of the day, aligns with the light exposure, the morning training, et cetera. The only thing to be aware of here is that if you're doing this post-exercise, there is some pretty compelling data that it actually decreases muscle hypertrophy post-exercise. So, a lot of athletes used to do this for recovery or whatever, but if you're a bodybuilder, you're really looking to gain muscle, I would think about doing it either before training or certainly not immediately after training because that can blunt size growth.
I do have people do this after cardio.
Sure. So again, decreases inflammation, seems to decrease soreness for a lot of people, definitely elevates the focus. Full disclosure, I do it after I train because I just don't really have a better time to fit it in my day just based on the way I structure my routine. But again, I'm happy with my lean mass. I feel like I'm adequately muscled for me, and it doesn't seem to impact strength either. And again, strength is my big focus, at least at the moment, to maintain and preserve.
Awesome. Okay. And then beyond like some of these like morning and evening routines, like is there one habit that can really help people to go from like great to amazing, or like from like really good to great? Because we've talked about AM routines, we've talked about PM routines. I think these are things that especially people who are listening to this podcast are probably already aware of in some capacity. Whether or not they're doing them is probably a different story. But what's like the secret sauce? What's like a hack that we can walk away with and be like, I never heard of that before?
Well, people have probably heard of it. So I'll give maybe a combined strategy here. But first off, maybe this is an angle that people aren't as aware of, but you mentioned nootropics a minute ago, or stimulants, or kind of that category. My single favorite is caffeine, period. And I think this is so underrated and overlooked, but appropriate use of caffeine early in the day is a fantastic performance enhancer. Again, my favorite being freshly ground black coffee. So avoiding the cream, avoiding the sugar for obvious reasons. Too much saturated fat can cause cardiovascular issues. Too much sugar, we spent a few minutes on that. So that can obviously be problematic. But in addition to the focus and the alertness, number one, number two, the polyphenols in freshly ground black coffee serve as powerful antioxidants. So this lowers inflammation in the body, number one. Number two, what people may or may not be aware of is that actually regular coffee drinkers tend to have an increased lifespan or lower all-cause mortality. So caffeine, coffee in particular, is very healthy when consumed appropriately.
I hate to be the one to tell you this, but I don't think that's like a pretty big secret.
Okay, I said people may know this.
I think there's a lot of people who drink coffee. I don't know. I might be extrapolating based on my experience of having 400 milligrams of caffeine in my coffee every morning.
Of course. Decreased incidence of Alzheimer's, decreased incidence of Parkinson's, neurodegenerative disease. So again, this tracks. So that's an easy one. So just quick one for people that are coffee drinkers, keep doing it. And drip filtered coffee seems to be the best way to go about that. Again, without the cream and the sugar.
That's what I needed to hear.
Stick that one in there. The single biggest hack, if you will, or at least technique or something to implement. Again, this is not a secret, but I think really the mechanism behind it and the why is probably more what I want to focus on here. But that's any kind of meditation. I'm sure everybody's heard of meditation, and this gets thrown around a lot. But again, we look at the literature, we look at the effect that it has on the brain. Even just 5 to 10 minutes a day to start. Ideally, if you can get up to 20 minutes a day, this, believe it or not, Nate, actually rewires the physical structure of your brain. And in particular, a part of your brain called your prefrontal cortex. So that's the part right behind your forehead here, kind of the front third of your brain.
Make good decisions that we didn't have when we were 25.
Yes, exactly. So this is the kind of the CEO of your brain is the other way to put this. responsible for all of your executive function, working memory, just highest judgment, objective thinking, etc. When you meditate, you actually increase the thickness of the structure of your prefrontal cortex.
Wow.
There's a measurable change on imaging, and I mean, even in, God forbid, in kind of postmortem slices or autopsies, we can measure these changes. Number one. Number two, this enhances the top-down inhibition or regulation over your fear center called your amygdala. And maybe fewer people have heard of the amygdala than have heard of the prefrontal cortex, but the amygdala is what gets activated when you are in fight or flight mode. And so this is responsive to cortisol and keeps you in a stuck, reactive, just state that kind of precedes or precludes all planning and all higher order function. Excuse me. But again, when we go back to that cortisol and that chronically stressed state, and most Americans are sort of stuck in this pattern, most people are just reacting to everything in life, and they're really not in control. And it's because of this relationship. And so learning how to maintain or even enhance control over that fear center and improve the prefrontal cortex function is something you can do with, first off, a lot of what we talked about. So sleep, by the way, does this. Exercise, by the way, does this. Proper nutrition, by the way, does this. But so does meditation. The more you do this, the more you strengthen those connections. And it doesn't just help in the moment. This actually helps you from here forward, because once you've made those changes and you've rewired that substrate, that neuronal substrate, I mean, again, the neurons actually talk to each other better, they communicate better, they project to their brain networks better. That's a functional change that remains, that in a habit that you build upon. And so for future stressors and future big decisions, for again, maintaining that higher level of focus, or if you're like a Marine Corps special operator in the middle of a battlefield, which is like the most stressful environment imaginable, they can maintain objective judgment and control when literally their life is on the line. And so this is a life-saving technique for these people.
Wow.
Fascinating.
Any tips on like how to get started? Is it like sit in silence, guided meditation, 5 minutes in the morning, do it in the evening before bed? When's like best practices of that?
Any and all the above. And I'm going to come back to whatever is lowest resistance and is easiest and works best for you. Again, if you got to pick up the kids in the afternoon and you're busy chasing them around, maybe not a good time to do that. If you're not a morning person and it takes you an hour to kind of turn on all the switches in your brain between the light and the caffeine, whatever you got to do, and it would be just the worst thing ever to meditate in the morning, don't do it in the morning. Just you will know. And another helpful exercise that may help kind of line this up for people. One of my favorite things I do with clients and my Transcend Health members is to have people just either take out a sheet of paper or a note on your phone and map out the 24 hours of the day. Be sure that you're leaving whatever you need for sleep. So that's 7.5 to 9 hours. Again, 8 hours on average for most people, but somewhere around that's non-negotiable. So with your remaining, 16-ish, whatever that gets you to, start from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, and time block. Okay, hour to wake up, hour or two for training. Here's my recovery. Here's my time block for my highest focus, deep work. Here are my breaks. Whatever it is that you're doing, but meditation goes in there wherever it best fits. And that's a living, breathing document. You arrange it any place, time you want. If you have a variable schedule, I mean, the sky's the limit on how you can do this, but just creating the intentionality and actually writing it down, right? I mean, the stat is like people that write down their goals are 33% more likely to achieve them, however that goes. There's neuroscience behind that. You're setting an intentional plan, keeping it visible, modifying it, working with it.
Awesome. Great tip. I always say the calendar is your biggest fat loss tool anyways. So
sure. Of course.
Dr. Ryan, this has been fantastic, super educational. It's been really fun to chat with you on this. So I know people can grab your book. This episode will probably be out by the time your book drops, or pretty close thereby. We'll throw a link into the show notes for that. Anything you want to leave us with before we go today?
I just want your entire audience to know that you're in control.
I'm in control.
Not Nate.
Thank you so much.
The individual.
Oh, okay.
Nate, you were in control of you, Nate. How about that?
This episode just took a turn for the really good just then.
Eat more tacos. Nate's in control. I'm out. Jokes aside, I want everybody to be empowered to know that they're in control of their lives, and that whatever you're dealing with, wherever you are in your health journey, that better performance is possible, happiness is possible, just a better you as possible. And I mean, what my goal for everybody is to live longer, healthier, more impactful lives. And I just, if even one person benefits from hearing any version of this message, the kind of the vision I have is that that person is able to positively transform their life, and then who they get to go impact in their circle, and those people in theirs, and so on and so forth, and whatever network effect, butterfly effect, whatever you want to call that. But that's the impact that I'm looking for, and I think it is fully possible through this intentional healthy lifestyle design.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, man. This is a lot of fun.
Thank you, Nate.